I hate Taylor Swift. When politics meets pop culture meltdown, I hate Taylor Swift. With those three words typed on a quiet Sunday morning, Donald Trump once again managed to shock the political stage. Not with policy or vision, but with raw, unfiltered anger aimed at one of the most popular entertainers in the world. Think about the picture this paints. A former president at 78 years old, railing not against an adversary on the global stage, not against a policy rival, but against a singer beloved by millions. All of this while the U.S. stock market, under President Biden, reaches record highs, defying Trump's past claims that such growth would be impossible without him in the White House. The broader context. Trump's outburst comes at a precarious time for him. Multiple criminal cases loom over his future. Subpoenas chase his inner circle, and even longtime allies are distancing themselves. Instead of projecting strength, he appears cornered, sweating, defensive, and increasingly isolated. Media outlets like MSNBC have been quick to dissect this moment, pointing out how it highlights not just Trump's temper, but also the fragility of his public image. Meanwhile, economic data tells a different story than Trump's narrative. Historically, markets and wages have grown faster under Democratic presidents than Republican ones, a trend reinforced under Biden. While wealthy Americans are seeing record gains, the broader point is more striking. Prosperity has often coincided with Democratic leadership, despite Trump's insistence otherwise. The language of hate presidents rarely use the word hate in public. George H.W. Bush, for instance, once admitted he hated Saddam Hussein, but carefully explained why, citing the dictator's use of poison gas on civilians. Even in that rare case, Bush tempered his words with caution, noting he did not hate easily. Trump's message about Taylor Swift offered no such explanation, no broader context, just naked disdain. Unlike Bush, Trump seems to reach for hatred reflexively, using it against critics, rivals, celebrities, and even ordinary Americans. The difference is not just rhetorical, it signals the mindset of a man who thrives on division. Impact beyond politics. For millions of young people who idolize Taylor Swift, Trump's words raised unsettling questions. Children and teenagers reportedly asked their parents, "Why does Donald Trump hate Taylor Swift?" For some, this single post may shape their view of him more powerfully than any campaign rally. It crystallizes a generational divide, alienating the very voters Trump cannot afford to lose if he hopes for a political comeback. A man on the defensive, Lawrence O'Donnell, with his signature cutting analysis, framed this episode as more than just a social media rant. It's part of a larger unraveling, the spectacle of a man once at the pinnacle of power, now reduced to lashing out at pop stars. To critics, it looks less like leadership and more like the bitter performance of someone clinging to relevance. Final thought. When a former president spends his energy attacking a musician rather than addressing national challenges, what does it say about his priorities and his future in American politics? Is this just another Trump tantrum, or the clearest sign yet of a legacy collapsing under its own weight? When hatred backfires. Trump, Taylor Swift, and the irony of justice. Imagine if President Biden woke up one morning and tweeted, "I hate Lee Greenwood." Lawrence O'Donnell posed this thought experiment with cutting precision. Greenwood, a country singer and Trump supporter, is best known for performing at Republican conventions. If Biden had ever made such a declaration, critics from every corner would likely demand his removal, citing concerns about his mental fitness. Now compare that to Donald Trump's "I hate Taylor Swift" post. No outrage from his base, no calls for accountability. Instead, followers who once claimed to defend traditional values now shrug off or even embrace this outburst. The contrast is striking. What would be called madness from anyone else is accepted as normal when it comes from Trump. Generational divide. For millions of young Americans, especially first-time voters, Taylor Swift is more than a singer. She's a cultural icon. To them, Trump's attack doesn't just feel irrational, it feels bizarre, even laughable. Many parents who support Trump may soon face uncomfortable conversations at the dinner table, as their children ask why the former president would spend his time hating a pop star. In a political landscape where youth turnout could shape the election, alienating an entire generation over Taylor Swift may be one of Trump's most costly mistakes. A nation on edge. The Taylor Swift controversy, however, was quickly overshadowed by another American tragedy. Yet another man with a gun, another act of violence in a country where firearms are easier to obtain than anywhere else in the developed world. This ongoing crisis reflects a deeper issue: how political leaders, particularly Republicans, have resisted reforms, leaving the nation vulnerable to cycles of gun-related chaos. The ultimate irony. And here's where history twists the knife. Standing at the center of the investigation into a possible assassination attempt on Donald Trump is Marlene Morenzi LaPointe, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. His story is the very embodiment of the American dream. Arriving as a poor teenager from Haiti, graduating high school in Miami, serving in the Marines during the Gulf War, and building a career in law before becoming a federal prosecutor. This is the man now tasked with protecting Trump's rights and upholding justice in a moment of national crisis. Yet Trump's own words about Haitian immigrants are infamous. He once smeared them as people who eat dogs and cats, language that shocked even some within his own party. Hypocrisy laid bare. The symbolism could not be sharper. A leader who spent years vilifying immigrants now depends on an immigrant from Haiti to ensure that justice is served fairly in his own case. The very people Trump demeaned are, in this moment, the guardians of the system that shields him from chaos. Final thought. When Trump rails against pop stars and immigrants, he may think he's reinforcing his brand. But what happens when reality itself dismantles his narrative? When young voters turn away? And when the very people he insulted are the ones upholding the law on his behalf? Is this irony, hypocrisy, or simply the unraveling of a political persona built on division? An attempted assassination and the battle over justice. They're poisoning the blood of our country. Those were Donald Trump's words about immigrants not long ago. In his worldview, immigrants are the villains and native-born Americans are the guardians of order. Yet, in reality, the script has flipped. The accused would-be assassin at Trump's Florida golf course is a 58-year-old American man, while the prosecutor ensuring justice is a Haitian immigrant, U.S. Attorney Markenzie LaPointe. The Florida incident federal prosecutors announced charges against Ryan Wesley Roth, a convicted felon, after he was caught near Trump International Golf Course with a rifle that had its serial number removed. According to the Justice Department, a Secret Service agent spotted the weapon protruding from a tree line and fired in response. Roth fled but was later apprehended with help from local sheriffs. The FBI continues to investigate the event as a potential assassination attempt against the former president. LaPointe publicly thanked his team of prosecutors and federal investigators, crediting their around-the-clock work for swiftly bringing charges. Yet the irony remains. These same agents, praised for protecting Trump, are the very people he routinely labels the deep state and promises to purge if he returns to power. Defunding federal law enforcement. This moment underscores a political paradox. Republicans often accuse Democrats of wanting to defund the police, but within their own platform, many have pledged to weaken or dismantle federal law enforcement agencies such as the FBI, especially when their investigations target Trump. If Republicans win both the presidency and the Senate, Trump could replace LaPointe and every Biden-appointed U.S. attorney with loyalists, reshaping the Justice Department in his image. The stakes for the courts. The future of America's judiciary hangs in the balance as well. Under Biden, the Senate has already confirmed more than 200 judges, including Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, the first black woman on the Supreme Court. Another 21 nominees await confirmation. Meanwhile, nearly 70 federal appeals court judges are approaching retirement age in the coming years. Whoever wins the next presidency could appoint almost 40% of all appellate judges, a staggering influence that would shape U.S. law for decades. The contrast between Republican and Democratic-appointed judges has never been clearer. Recently, a conservative Supreme Court majority created the unprecedented doctrine of criminal immunity for Trump, something no president before him had ever been granted. By contrast, Democratic appointees, including Biden's and Obama's justices, sided with the Constitution and rejected the idea that a president could stand above the law. Why it matters. Federal judges serve for life, often in deciding landmark cases decades after their appointment. Justice Clarence Thomas, for example, voted to overturn Roe v. Wade 32 years after his confirmation. If Republicans control the Senate during a Harris presidency, they could block all judicial confirmations for years, leaving vacancies unfilled and the courts frozen in partisan deadlock. Final thought. The Florida assassination attempt reveals more than just a security breach. It highlights the contradictions in Trump's rhetoric, the fragility of federal institutions, and the enormous stakes of upcoming elections. The question is stark. Will the next administration strengthen the justice system or dismantle it in the name of political loyalty? The Supreme Court. Where the next presidency will echo for decades, few issues in American politics carry stakes as high or as lasting as judicial appointments. If Democrats lose control of the Senate, a potential President Kamala Harris could become the first in history unable to confirm a single federal judge. That scenario would freeze the courts, leaving vacancies unfilled and reshaping the balance of power for an entire generation. Why judges matter more than ever. In the past, party lines didn't always determine judicial outcomes. Richard Nixon's own Supreme Court appointees unanimously ruled against him during the Watergate scandal, forcing his resignation. George H.W. Bush appointed both Clarence Thomas, a staunch opponent of Roe v. Wade, and David Souter, who later upheld abortion rights. There was unpredictability, independence, and occasionally restraint. Today, the divide is far sharper. Judges appointed by Republicans and Democrats deliver radically different rulings on issues ranging from reproductive rights to presidential immunity. The stakes of each appointment now feel existential. Trump's legal lifeline special counsel. Jack Smith is appealing a controversial decision by Judge Aileen Cannon, a Trump appointee who dismissed charges against the former president for retaining classified documents. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, made up of a mix of Republican and Democratic appointees, has previously checked Cannon's rulings, and it may well reverse this one too. But the larger danger lies ahead. If Trump regains the presidency, he could simply fire Smith, shut down his prosecutions, and reward loyalists with lifetime seats on the nation's highest court. Speculation already swirls that Trump would offer inducements to aging justices like Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito to retire, paving the way for younger, hardline replacements. That would lock in a conservative majority for decades, potentially 5 Trump-aligned justices shaping American life long after Trump himself exits the stage. The choice before voters. The next election isn't just about 4 years of presidential leadership, it's about 40 years of judicial power. Federal judges once seated can influence everything from voting rights to health care, from reproductive freedom to presidential accountability. Trump's imprint on the courts already includes the doctrine of criminal immunity, tailored to his own legal battles. A second term could deepen that legacy in ways almost impossible to undo. By contrast, if Harris wins with the Democratic Senate, the courts could continue moving toward greater diversity, balance, and independence. Over 200 Biden appointees, including Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, already demonstrate how profoundly presidential elections shape the judiciary. Final thought. The fight over judges is not abstract. It is the foundation of how America will be governed long after today's politicians are gone. The question facing voters is simple but urgent. Do we want courts that serve the Constitution or courts reshaped to serve one man's ambitions?